Welcome to the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy, wife, mother of two and devoted homemaker. Join me on this journey as we explore the beauty of slow and simple living, where life unfolds at its own unhurried pace. I'll take you through my experiences of slowing down, tending to our allotment plot, finding joy in the little things and making the most of our small home. Together we'll learn to live in harmony with the ever-changing seasons, discovering the magic that lies in embracing the present moment. So let's embark on this enriching adventure towards a more intentional and fulfilling life. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Slow Living Collective podcast. And today I want to talk about winter. I know we're not quite there, but I want to talk about winter and how to stay energized and motivated through those slower, colder winter months. And honestly, in my life, there's this moment every year, and it's usually sometime around like mid-November, when I realise I've just started sighing a lot more. My energy is dipping, my motivation is flickering, and everything just feels a little heavier. The days are so much shorter as you head towards winter solstice. The light is barely here, let's be honest. And even the smallest task can really feel like, it's just such a climb. And it's one of those things, I think, that winter can just be hard, especially when you're juggling work, family life, I home educate, feeding people their meals 3 times a day, relationships, life. But here is what I've learned. Winter doesn't have to defeat us, and the darkness doesn't have to drag us under. With a little intention and a lot of grace for ourselves, let's be honest, we can work with this season instead of fighting against it. Now, I know there are people that really do suffer from seasonal affective disorder, and this is, secondary to that. Seasonal affective disorder is a real seasonal depression, but what I'm talking about today is not that. It's just that natural ebb and flow of the seasons and just naturally feeling a little more blah in the winter. So let's start with the obvious. There is less light, and that affects us. It affects us physically, mentally and emotionally. And we are not broken because we slow down in winter. We are not lazy because we crave more rest or struggle to wake up when it's still pitch black at 7 a.m. Our bodies are responding to the environment. And the trick isn't to pretend it's not happening. The trick is to listen to it and to honour it, and then gently create structures around that support you. And so for me, that starts with anchoring the day. So in winter, when the light is limited and the days just blur together, I need rhythm more than I ever need a routine. And there is a difference, because a rhythm flows with you, whereas a routine demands something of you. So instead of scheduling every moment, I just focus on anchor points. A slow morning drink with a lamp on. Maybe it's the fairy lights twinkling on the Christmas tree in December. It might be an afternoon walk, even if it's really dull and grey. And I know, particularly for women, it is difficult this time of year because it gets dark so much earlier. Our time outside where we feel safe is limited, let's be honest. But, if you can take an afternoon walk, even maybe a lunchtime walk, even if, you're getting home from work when it's already dark and you just don't feel safe and comfortable being out in the dark by yourself. Maybe it's a nourishing meal that you cook in the kitchen, and it's less about productivity but more about just being present in those things. And these little rituals can really become something to hold on to in the darker days. Because the light really matters, and while we can't change the sun, I can bring in more light where I need it into our home. For example, I might have more lamps and candles. I don't have traditional candles, I just have battery operated candles, but more soft lighting and cozy corners and blankets and things like that. So we have fairy lights up in our house all year long, and that's really nice for the other seasons. They're never on in the summer and rarely in the spring, but autumn and winter they're on a lot. You can even buy the lamps, particularly for seasonal affective disorder. So that can be really good if that's something you suffer from, and it can help. It's not a miracle, but it can help. But also, other than light, let's talk about energy, because our motivation feels a lot different in the winter. It is slower and it is more cyclical, and sometimes, let's be honest, it disappears altogether. And that used to really panic me, to be honest. I used to think, like, why can't I get going? Why can't I just push through it? But now I see things a lot differently, because winter isn't a time for endless forward motion, let's say. It is a season to be more dormant and be more reflective and even just rest. And it's not failure, it is nature. You just have to look outside of your window. The trees are dropping their leaves. Animals are hibernating, seeds are sleeping underground. It is completely okay to slow down and to be slower and to do less. In fact, winter is one of the most powerful times to stop doing and just start being. And I think we get so confused, and I say this every year, because Christmas falls right at the beginning of winter, and so we tip over from November to December, and like meteorologically speaking, right, December the 1st in the meteorological calendar is the beginning of winter. And I would say it's probably where most people would sort of think that winter begins. But also at the same time, it goes completely unnoticed, because as soon as November flicks into December, everybody is in Christmas mode. Some people are in Christmas mode earlier than that, but by December everyone's like, okay, Christmas is coming, I really ought to get on this. 1st of December, some people are putting up Christmas trees if they haven't already, and it is just a very busy season. There's lots of Christmas and twinkly lights and presents and lots of money being spent and lots of social things going on, and it's just very busy at a time of year where that is not natural, for a start. So what tends to happen is we roll out of Christmas into New Year, very, very busy season. We hit January and we're like, oh, everybody is down, depressed, because we have been at this forced peak throughout December. And suddenly, now it's January, we've got nothing to look forward to, but we're in the depths of winter. And listen, don't even get me started on the whole New Year, New Me thing, because that's not even the right time of year to be setting resolutions or goals or whatever for the year ahead. No, it's the depths of winter. We should not be doing that. But how do we stay motivated through winter without fighting against the season? And I think what it comes down to is redefining motivation. We kind of think of it connected to hustle culture, but it's not that. It's not pushing. Instead, motivation can be connected to tending to ourselves and staying connected to what really matters, even in a really quiet way. So in winter, my motivation looks like keeping my home warm, keeping the meals that I create nourishing, and keeping the energy in our family really grounded. And I'm not setting big goals or doing big projects. I'm tending to what is already here, and to me, that is enough. And of course, we also have to guard our energy, especially if, like me, you are parenting, home educating, working from home, or all of the above, because winter burnout is real, because the mental load feels a lot heavier, the noise feels louder, and especially if you're neurodivergent or raising neurodivergent kids, there is a lot of sensory input in winter. There is a lot of more indoor time. There is a lack of daylight, and the whole thing can be a lot. So boundaries can become really essential, and that might look like saying no to more outings or cancelling plans without feeling guilty, building in more buffer days, creating a very bare minimum rhythm for winter that lets everybody rest without everything falling apart. And let's be honest, while we're talking about this, sometimes the best thing I do for my mood and motivation is get outside. And I don't always want to, but I do never regret it. Even a 10-minute walk can sometimes just reset things. And listen, I am very pro not feeling forced into nature time and outside time, because I think social media can sometimes tell us like, all you need to do is get outside. And it's just not possible for everybody. Some people are raising neurodivergent children who just, that's not them. That is something that they cannot just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to go outside, because, sometimes that doesn't work. And I always also think it really does come from a place of privilege as well, that not everybody has an outdoor space. And I know the outside is always there, but not everybody can take a long nature walk or go to the woods or go to a forest or any of that stuff. Some people live in a city, some people live in London, some people don't have that, ability to travel to nature. So I try and not be like, you need to be in nature or whatever. I see it a lot on social media about how, especially in like the home ed community, about, just, you don't need to pay for X, Y, and Z, you just need to get outside. And it's like, it's a really privileged way of thinking. Not everybody can just do that. Not everybody has access to that. Not everybody has the physical ability to just get outside. So I think we need to be really careful around that. So just personally for me, I like to just step out onto my balcony sometimes. Because, of course, nature can be good for all of us, but I just wanted to acknowledge that it's not always accessible. So when we say things like this, we are saying it from a place of privilege. But I do personally like to step out onto the balcony. Nature is still there, even in winter. I like to look at the bare branches of the trees around me. I can also do this from inside my house, right? I don't have to step outside if I don't want to. I like to see the frost on the ground. It's really minimal amount of time that I might be outside in winter. But, in terms of, I'm still doing stuff. We still do forest school and things like that. I'm still sometimes at the allotment. Sometimes, not always. I do like to take a rest through the winter. But nature is still there. And sometimes that does help me feel steadier. But I would say something that I do really lean into quite hard in the winter is seasonal food. And I don't know why I lean harder this time of year, but I do find it one of the best ways to stay grounded. I suppose I lean into it all the time because, of course, through the winter, all I want is salad. And I actually really like a good salad, especially with homegrown lettuce, or, I'm using my homegrown cucumbers or tomatoes. So I lean into seasonal food all year round. I think what it is that I am more intentionally noticing it in the winter, because sometimes in the summer it's just so hot. I'm just trying to get through salad for every meal, and I just don't pay attention to, obviously, that is seasonal too. But I think, like I said, for me, eating seasonally is one of the best ways I stay grounded. And in the winter, that looks like making soups and casseroles and roasts. We have porridge for breakfast. I enjoy a lot more root veg. And I think it just sort of sends a little message to my brain that, we're safe, we're fed, we're cared for, we're warm, which is often exactly what we need to hear in winter when, we're looking outside and thinking, oh my God, when are we going to really see the sun again? Apart from, you get those beautiful winter days where the sun is shining, sometimes it's like, when am I going to feel the warmth of the sun on my skin again? And so another thing that really keeps me going through the winter is just looking for joy. And it doesn't have to be big joy. It doesn't have to be a bucket list full of stuff or sort of Christmas magic. I just mean like really tiny joy, the kind you have to pay attention to, whether that be a new book or a drawing that the kids have done, or making some fresh bread, or I don't know, when the sun starts to come out. All of these things. And they're not frivolous. They're just survival. Just small bursts of meaning in the darkness, and I really believe that they're worth seeking. So if you struggle with the seasonal shift like so many people do, I want you to know that you're not alone. So many people feel it, and you're not weak for finding winter hard. You're just human. You were never ever meant to feel the same all the year round. And that dip in motivation and that desire to curl up and do less, that is not you failing. It's your body doing it exactly what it's meant to do. The world slows down in winter, and so can you. And what really helps me most is accepting this. Not in a giving up way, but in a, what if I just stopped resisting this way? What if we allowed ourselves to feel a little heavier as we go into winter? And what if we let go of the need to stay productive and instead just focus on being present where we are? What if winter it's not a problem to solve. It is just a season to move through. And that doesn't mean that we don't do anything. It just means that we just do what matters, and we do it differently. And we take our time and we rest more and just find new ways to ground ourselves and just honour winter instead of fighting it. And so as the darkness starts to close in on us, and if you're sitting there and you're wondering, how on earth am I going to make it through the next few months? I want you to know this. You are already making it through, just one step at a time. You're allowed to change your rhythm, you're allowed to say no, you're allowed to protect your energy, and you're also not alone. So I want this to be a reminder, you are not behind or lazy, you are just responding to the season, and that's actually the most natural thing you can do. You are allowed to slow down in the dark. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it gave you some tips, and I hope you just feel maybe a little bit better about winter coming. And I'm going to be talking a little more the other side of Christmas and New Year about winter and just getting us through those 2 months of January and February. Like I've explained before, I am going to be splitting the podcast up now into 4 quite distinct parts of the year. And so I am going to finish this podcast in December, and then we will pick it up again in January and go from there. So like I said, I hope today's episode was helpful to you. You can find me as always over on Instagram at The Slow Living Collective. You can also find me on Substack, theslowlivingcollective.substack.com. You can head over there, you can find this podcast episode, leave me a comment, let's start a conversation about how we feel about winter. So that's it for today, and I will catch you in my next episode.